Welcome to episode 2 of Unstructured. Today I'm talking with David again on the second part of the creation of Structured Media and how he built this. You know, we're going to talk about him bringing on his first hire and the business sort of in the second year up until now. So stay tuned and enjoy. Alrighty, so we are on episode 2.
Here we go.
Of Unstructured.
That's right.
The podcast. TM.
That's right.
So on the last episode, we were talking about your first year with Structured Media and creating this business and what it was like to start that. And so we're going to continue on with that because we're on part 2 of that. And so we kind of left off at the end of your first year. And I think we left off right at the point where you were getting ready to bring on a new team, or you were getting ready to create a team and bring on an employee.
The first.
Yeah. So tell me about your first employee.
Yeah. His name was Jake Sorrentino. He's a good friend of mine and still is a good friend of mine, even though he's not on the team anymore. And I still remember I was playing basketball with him and we'd play every week. And he was such a great guy. I always ask, how's it going? I think it was really interesting to him that I started this, as it was to me, just always, every week something new to talk about, not sure exactly how it was going to go. Mm-hmm. And he asked me, he's like, so when you hiring? And he didn't work in the creative field. And so I said, well, actually, I'm probably going to hire at some point this spring. I said, are you interested? He said, oh yeah. I said, but I don't have any experience. And I said, well, I didn't either. I said, true. I learned, so I can train you. And, we started talking about it more, and he had a lot of experience in customer service. So
we do a lot of that.
There's a lot of that. Lots of that
involved.
And so it's so good with people and had a deep belief in the business already. And so that was kind of the first conversation, and he came on the team.
Cool. So before that, did you have it in your mind that you were getting ready to bring somebody on the team, or did that conversation kind of spark things for you?
I think we kind of left off where I was really going through that decision of, is this just going to be my thing? And am I going to try to really get into some crazy types of work and crazy types of properties? Or do I try to build a team and expand, with the biggest need out there, which is, sort of a conventional photo, video, Matterport model.
Right. Okay, so you guys talked about it, and then you brought him on.
Ooh, yeah? That was like the scariest moment. One of the scariest moments financially of my life. Yeah. From like this, again, not even a year ago, starting out, hoping I could support myself, to I'm too busy, and now I'm gonna try to hire someone. Okay,
so what did your days look like? Like right at that point where you were looking into hiring somebody, what did your days look like? What was the daily grind for David?
This has been my model. I've tried to stick to this going forward, is until you get absolutely scheduled out at least a week. So I'm booked out an entire week. I know it's time to bring someone on. And that's sort of what I've stuck to as we've added team members on. Once the team is booked out a week, we know it's time to bring someone on. I see most people want to schedule between 2 to 3 and 7 days out. Yeah. So when we're booked up a whole week, I know at that point we're having to turn down business.
Yeah. True.
So my day was shooting all day and editing at night, and I thought, if we're going to try to grow the team, this is the time to do it.
Okay. All right. So you brought him on. What did that look like? What impact did that have on day-to-day operations and business?
I thought it would make everything easier. As I think most people do. They think, oh, I'm going to grow a team and it's going to change everything. But that's the hardest part, is when you're too busy. And I think someone can make a case for if you're already booking out a week, you waited too long, because it takes time to train someone. Yeah. And it's really hard to train someone when you are scrambling to get the work done.
Yeah. And I think it's also interesting to consider like what time of year it was when you were booking out a week, because booking out a week in the summer is different than booking out a week in the middle of the winter.
Yeah. And this was early spring.
Yeah.
I think this was March. I think he started sometime around March.
So if you were booking out a week in early March, then
I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
I knew it was going to be crazy.
Okay. All right. So you have a full schedule. You're booking a week out. You brought on staff. You have another shooter, except he has no experience. What do you do?
I remember I almost sent him on his own the very first day to a property.
Oh my God.
It was crazy. He came with me.
That's ridiculous.
I still remember he came with me to train. It was Christmas Eve.
Wow.
And we had an agent like, hey, I've got a couple properties. I need, like, can I get them done? Is there any chance you're going to work that day? And my philosophy as we were growing that first year was like, basically anytime anyone needs something done, I'm going to say yes. And so Christmas Eve, he came with me to a couple properties. I forget what pond or lake they were on, but it was 2 little lake cabins that did not have heat in them. And it was snow on the ground and like 25 degrees outside. Here we are trying to train in these cabins that don't have power. Maybe they had lights on, but no heat.
Were they furnished?
I think so, but
see, people might not think that makes a difference, but it does.
Yeah.
Especially when you're learning, in my opinion.
Yeah. Oh, it does. Absolutely.
Because I remember training for my first time, and I actually have a background in doing real estate photography, which is kind of another...
Which we'll talk about.
Yeah, that's a whole thing we can get into. But I remember I was like, wow, this is completely different than any way that I've ever done this. And looking back on those photos, they are much to a high degree worse than the work that we make here. But
there's a process. It just takes time to learn.
There is a process. And I think one of the biggest things, I'm going down a rabbit hole, but I got to say this. One of the biggest things that I thought was interesting training with you is that you only line up the angles that you're going to take. Before I would like take a million photos and I would get every corner and I would do all the things. And it was super inefficient and it made a lot of images that weren't even usable. So anyways, not to get too far down that.
No, it's interesting. It really is. At least for me, it's very interesting to hear different perspectives.
Yeah.
Because I only really had the one that I kind of discovered and learned, some others on YouTube, but yeah, it's so interesting.
Okay. So how did he do training on Christmas Eve in the cold?
He was there. He was helping me get it done. But yeah, he trained. I think that could have been his first day training. That was Christmas Eve. And then he came on in March. So I know he'd been with me to a few shoots, probably on the weekends. He was training a little bit here and there, but he jumped in full time. So that was crazy to me. You know, he's coming on full time, and I almost sent him to Damascata his very first day. And then someone canceled. So I went with him. And it ended up being a property that we did for Sotheby's, which was crazy. Whoa. So a good thing
you were going to send him out for a shoot for Sotheby's?
Yeah.
Sotheby's?
I didn't know. Awesome, it was sort of like a last minute, something happened actually where I think I messed up or we didn't confirm a time. And so then it was like a last minute, like, hey, you're coming, right? And I was like, yeah.
Sure.
And then I was like, Jake, you don't mind if I send you to this property, right? Like, are you ready to do this? And he was like, oh yeah, I'll go for it. So I'm so glad we've changed how we do things.
Yeah. So how long do you think it took for you both to get, or for him to adopt a similar level of quality? Because in this kind of work, it's important that if you're bringing on more team, then you have to make sure that they maintain the same levels of quality and the same style of shooting across the board so that people know that they can expect the same quality of work.
Yeah. I mean, It took a long time. It took a long time of sending him out on some shoots that seemed more appropriate to continuously training. And again, because it was just the two of us, anytime, he wasn't doing something, he was coming with me. So I'd say training was a lot more intense and consistent, but also it happened quick. And again, we were so busy. It was so hard to not just send him out on his own because we had people just like begging for work, begging for us to go do their shoots. But it definitely was not long enough. And that was the absolute hardest thing. Bringing on the first team member was everyone's used to seeing you.
Yeah. How did people react when it wasn't you that showed up? And did you warn them?
I did. I still remember doing a little Instagram story about, hey, we've got someone else on the team. Like, he's training with me. You're going to see him come in. But there were definitely some people who said, hey, I prefer to have you at this property. And it was honestly, it was a hard balance between saying yes and also saying, this is the way things are going now. So, take it or leave it. And that was just the reality of it.
Yeah.
But that was the hardest thing to do with growing a team, was that very first hire, to where it's no longer just you. And I still remember I had some friends who would just kind of jokingly see photos that I'd post on social media, and they'd say like, "Oh, you did that one," or "Jake did that one." Like they could pick out which one I did. And
could they? With accuracy?
Sometimes, most of the time, especially as he was starting. But that was hard. That was hard for me, because I'd had people say like, you can't scale this. Like, this is like a creative endeavor. And this is something, for you and for other photographers, but like, this isn't something you can train other people to do. And I was having a hard time with that.
And then you showed them.
I kept at it. And eventually when I stopped taking photos, I said, well, you can try to guess now, but there aren't any out there now. Not as many anyways, but it wasn't long, honestly, until we adopted a more uniform process. But that was something that we still work on. Yeah. Every person coming onto the team is getting trained longer and longer, and in a better way. Jake and I have been working on that a lot. Yeah, but I think as we're always improving the consistency and the quality, that has to happen.
Right. So true. Were there any other standout challenges with taking on your first new hire that stand out in your head?
Oh, it was just a whirlwind. It was such a whirlwind of trying to, I would say the hardest thing was showing up to a property, doing a lot of videos, trying a lot of new things. And I think that was a big reason why I was able to grow quickly in the beginning, was because we were iterating so quickly. When an agent said, hey, can we try this on a video? I'd be like, absolutely, let's try it. Oh, this was a great idea. Now we're going to do this every time. When you have someone else on the team and you want to deliver something consistent, you can't do that. Yeah. Or if you do and you update your standard, now you have to train them on it, and you have to make sure everyone can do it.
Yeah.
So I think that was the hardest thing, was as we were trying to iterate what we were offering and at the same time make a process. And I didn't really have great processes. And that's the hardest thing, is saying, all right, I feel bad. Jake's here now, and, people are expecting him to be able to do what I'm doing, and I'm trying to expect him to do what I'm doing. And I just hadn't taken the time to really develop the processes the way I should have.
Yeah. And then record those properly is like
exactly
the major key.
It's so funny when people talk about having a process. It's not just knowing how you do something. It's documenting that. It's organizing that. It's making it easily accessible. Yep. And it's training the team on a regular basis of, this is how we do things.
And keeping it updated.
Absolutely.
Because things are always changing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's vital. It's super important. And I think when you start a business, a lot of people don't automatically do that or know that, because why would you? You're just trying to make the business work.
Yeah.
But
I think I would, in a perfect world, especially going through school, you learn, well, you have to have your processes and your SOPs. That's great in theory, but when you're in the middle of trying to grow a business, it's really hard.
I don't think any school ever told me to do that, to be honest. And I went to business school.
Yeah.
And they never told me to write everything down and make sure you teach other people and all that. But okay.
Now we know.
So this was a financial, there was financial risk involved with this. So you were booked out a week, you bring Jake on, you theoretically train him. How did that change your business? How did that change, the time frame of orders and the finances?
Yeah. I still remember we hit a point, I think in May, where we were really just firing on all cylinders. Like, he and I were both driving like 2, 3, 4 properties a day. He was going all over the place, wherever we needed him to go. He wasn't doing video at this point, so I was only doing video. He was doing all the other photo shoots. So he was driving across the state, sometimes multiple times a day.
Wow. Because
we weren't able to organize properties in more of a systematic fashion the way we do now. Yeah. So he worked so hard. We were getting things done, and we had just an incredible month that May, to the point out in my mind, I thought, man, if the business ever does $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, I had in my mind, everything's going to be taken care of. Like no financial problems for the business or, for me personally. I just thought we've made it at that point.
Did you ever make it?
No. I mean, what happens is it reframes your thinking compared to like, as a W-2 employee getting a check, you budget and all that, but growing a business is not cheap.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make it a point to own all the equipment rather than just contracting people. I wanted to be able to have the equipment, have all the same stuff, be able to hire people and not have that obligation, not be trying to mix and match equipment. And so that's expensive when you have to buy all the equipment, and then you have software, and then it's just so cyclical because now when you are finally doing well and you're booking out, now you have to hire someone else on and you got to buy more equipment.
Yeah.
And then expenses snowball, and then you get on this hamster wheel where now you have 3 people on the team, and now you have to make sure you have enough work for 3 people. So what does that look like? And then you just end up in this kind of chasing your tail pattern of we're trying to grow. And so anyways, just to contrast, like we were making more money, but there was also all those challenges of a growing business and the financial requirements.
So is there ever relief?
I think so. I think,
maybe that question's too real.
Yeah, it's a little too real, but no, it's really cool to be able to look back. And I can't say that it was ever not a great investment, but there are certainly times when you're like, I don't know if I made the right decision. But I think I try to be so careful about, do we need to spend this money? If we are, let's make it count. But at the same time, my wife and I had talked about, we want to invest in this business. As long as we can pay the bills, we want to invest in helping it grow. Yeah. So that was kind of our approach, and I don't regret it, but it certainly had its scary moments. But I think every level you get to, it's a huge accomplishment. And I think you have to be able to build with a vision in mind. Otherwise you can kind of get lost sometimes.
Yeah. So true. Are we allowed to look at where we are now with employees and with goals and stuff like that? Or are we getting too far ahead of this?
No, let's do it. I guess the one other thing I that sticks out to my mind as we were going through that crazy time, a couple things. So Jake Sarantino came on board, and I think it was a month after that, Jake Sladen reached out to me and said, "Hey, I see you're doing this, real estate media thing, are you hiring?" And I was like, "Oh man, I just hired, maybe next spring, maybe." But
we already got a Jake on the team.
Yeah, we already got a Jake on the team. That spot's taken. But I thought, well, we got a guy maybe next year we'll hire. But it was 2 or 3 months later, I was like, "Jake, we're already swamped again. Can we try to make this work?" And so that's when we started the process of bringing him on the team, which was awesome. And then it was the next spring. So fast forward a year, we've been in business about 2 years. I think there were 4 of us at that point. And I still remember being at a shoot. We didn't have an administrator. And this was 11 o'clock. I had just finished my first shoot. I looked down, we had 8 new orders booked that morning. And I had a bunch of missed calls and a bunch of emails for people to schedule. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I supposed to keep up with this? So I was like, I think we need an administrator. And so, yeah.
Right. Cause up until that point, you're doing all of the shooting, you're editing the videos at least, but you had outsourced your photos by now. And then you're also taking all of the calls, booking all of the orders, trying to organize all of that.
Yeah. And that's one thing you don't really think about.
Yeah.
Because you just think about, well, if I hire another photographer, we can make more money. But then you get to the point of, well, I can't do administrative work myself. So how we got to hire someone to do that. And so I wish I brought someone on part-time at least to help with the administrative stuff for a while.
Yeah.
But Olivia came on mostly full-time and then fully full-time within about a month. But that's hiring an administrator full-time is a lot of money. And so that's all a factor of, growing the business. And so again, in some ways, being just a single photographer or 2 photographers, you can operate so lean that it makes more sense. And those were just things I never considered when I thought, oh, growing's a great idea.
Right.
So we'll talk about kind of where we are now.
Right.
Sorry,
No, that was a great
lost.
segue. We had to cover that.
So now I had to count. We've got 7 photographers because we got someone coming on who's probably going to join us as we get into the springtime. So he'll be number 7 besides me. We've got Florence, our virtual assistant. We've got Jaster and Miko, our video editors in the Philippines as well. We've got Raymond, who is editing some photos for us. He's more part-time now. And we've got Jem, who's our social media manager and project manager in the Philippines. And of course we have Olivia. I should have mentioned her with the main team. And then we outsource all the photos. So we've got about, I think 12 of us, 12,
Wow.
13. Yeah. Which is crazy. Crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. And you must have to run on more than, what were the financial goals before that you said everything would be all right?
Oh, I thought if we could hit $40,000 a month, I was like, world's like games changed. We're good. Like never have to worry about it again.
And that's with 2 people.
That was 2 people like scraping the barrel for, every ounce we could get. So, a huge goal this past May, we had just about 100,000 for a month.
There you go.
Which was a huge goal, a huge milestone. It doesn't sound quite as impressive when you think of how many per person, but I think we had 5? It might've been 5 or 6 this past May that were, on the team.
Oh yeah.
So, and I was starting to transition out. But yeah, it's amazing. So and it was kind of cool. From the very first month I shot my very first property in 2021 in May to 3 years later, just about hitting 6 figures in a month was just like mind blowing.
Yeah.
And this is something I come back to. I never would have imagined being able to do that. And I almost didn't even plan for it. But if I never tried, if I never gave myself the opportunity for the business to grow, it never would have happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
true.
So that's where we are. 3 years later, we're here doing a whole lot of properties.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay. So, I mean, we've kind of arrived at where we are now. What's next? Like, where's the compass pointing now?
Where's the compass pointing is a great question. I think that's something that is really important for any team too, because I think without a goal, you're kind of lost. That's something I've struggled with.
Yeah.
As we get to a point where there's only so much real estate in Maine and we want to try to grow, we want to try to keep the company growing. So which direction do we go in?
Right.
And I feel like there's a lot of little things, especially as a business owner in the direction. There's just so many things kind of pressing on your mind that but without a goal, it's hard to make progress any direction, I guess is kind of what I'm trying to say.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So for us, I think we want to try to continue in the branding and digital advertising space. So we want to try to continue to help service-based businesses, which I include real estate as a major category, build their brand and generate leads. And so I think that's really the target that we're trying to, or that's kind of the direction for the compass for us.
Cool.
And so for me, it's been a lot of time trying to understand what that looks like practically for the goals that we're going to go after. And we worked a lot last year on trying to do some new social media content as a service.
Yeah.
And that wasn't a great rollout, I should say. I think we learned a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all, I mean, everything's a learning experience.
It's true. Yeah. And I guess not to say, because we learned a lot, it wasn't exactly what we anticipated it being.
Yeah.
And we went back to the drawing board for a few things. And now we're sort of reworking. I think we have a better understanding of really what's needed.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The process has been outlined.
Yeah.
Even better.
Yeah.
Problems have been ironed out.
Yeah.
I think that, I think it's looking great. I think it's looking super promising. One of the things that I kind of wanted to touch on, though, going back a tiny bit.
Yeah.
So you have you're expanding the direction of the company or the type of work that the company is going to take on, but you're still kind of like keeping a certain niche. right?
Yeah.
Like, tell me about that. Like, what's like, what do you think the significance of that is? Like, would you do that?
Yeah, it's a good question. Really, I'm trying to understand the resources that we have as a team, and what equipment do we have, what skill sets do we have, what people do we have, and where can we add value to whatever need is out there that exists. And I think obviously we've done so much work in the real estate industry, but I think our skill set does exist in a little bit of a larger atmosphere. And I think the great thing about real estate is it's so systematic in the approach of photo, video, Matterport, and all those kind of things that it was easy to get off the ground and grow in that way. But I think when you talk more generally speaking about the social media and digital ads that other businesses need, it's a little bit more nuanced in terms of how, what the need is. And I think that's something we learned a lot about, and how to meet that need.
Yeah.
If an agent has a listing, they need photos so they can sell it. And that's very direct. But I think a lot of times, and something that we learned, and something I learned very early on is I thought, well, if people need videos, I just need to show up with a camera. They already know what they want to say, because clearly they're a business owner and they know what they're doing. And it only took a few shoots before I learned that lesson.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't think it's ever gone like that for me.
Not to critique anyone, but I learned, and I still remember like that moment of, wow, there's a huge need here that people don't know what to say and how to say it on video to communicate the point they're trying to make.
So are you saying that this newer offering is more than just showing up with a camera?
Absolutely. I'd say it's like the majority of what it is not even just showing up with a camera. So there's a lot of strategy, there's a lot of organization, there's a lot of operation that go into trying to create content for a business and create a system and a process to help them create marketing content.
Yeah.
And so the way we like to say it is we want to be your in-house media team. And what does that involve? Not just showing up with the camera. That involves understanding the brand's direction, strategizing content, shooting, editing, creating ads, posting the content, managing leads, collecting leads, all those things. So that as a business, you can say, we want to hire a team who can basically provide that end result.
Right. Yeah. And one of the things that I've always found cool about your like whole approach or some of the added value of this company is the efficiency of, you make it super easy for people to book an appointment, to pay and to get all of their things delivered, so that there aren't like hangups where you're waiting for somebody to like figure something out. And I think that sort of segues into, or that shows in like this new offering, because it's finding all of those pain points along the way of your client who, hasn't thought much about like how they want their content to like reference their brand or to show off their brand. They haven't thought about what kind of stuff they want at all. Like all these things. So you're helping them to like sort all of that out, and then, bringing it all the way down to like, we post the content for you. It's super valuable to be able to see those pain points that your client has and to predict them and to just pave a road over them from the start, which I think is what you've been doing on the social media packages and these video packages, is just seeing where there's going to be issues, where there's going to be hiccups, where there's going to be hangups. People in these industries, these home service-based industries, are super busy. Like, we definitely know that from real estate agents. Yeah. They are super busy. So the more that you can like streamline the process for them, take less of their time, and give them the best product and at the greatest ease and greatest results, is crucial. And I think that's where you have taken this product.
Yeah. Yeah. And even to jump back a little bit, because that's been a theme for a long time. And I know my dad always told me, be easy to work with and people want to work with you. And I was like, yeah. Like, Sounds good.
That's good dad wisdom there.
But like I understood and I'd seen it, but I still didn't know exactly how to implement that and what that really looked like. And so
It's a moving target, right?
It is a moving target, but being more business focused than photography focused, that was something I definitely looked into.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, how can I do this? And for me, one of them was being able to book online. And so that was something I tried to get very early on. And I still remember doing a property for this lady. And I don't think I'd met her before. And I said, hey, great to be working with you. And, when did you start working with us? What do you like? And I thought she was going to say like, man, you guys just have the best photos. And I was like, I was so ready to hear that and be like, yeah, we have the best photos out there.
No big deal.
Yeah. And she said, I can book online. It's so easy. And I was like, oh man, that's not what I thought. Exactly.
Great win.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to consider all of the parts of your service and what does someone really value? And I think that's so easy for us to overlook. And we just assume, well, if it's just good photos and people are going to do whatever they got to do to get them. But no, they're a real estate agent trying to get a property marketed, trying to get it listed.
No. Yeah. They need it. They actually need the photos before you've taken them. That's how soon they need their photos.
And scheduling was a pain point.
Yeah.
So I thought if I can solve that pain point, I'm just gonna do it. And so, and then also when I was thinking about an administrator, I thought I want to make this again as easy as possible for people to work with us. And I'd heard stories about other photographers and like they weren't nice, they weren't easy to work with, they weren't helpful. And I thought,
what's the point?
Yeah. Well, for me again, like not being a really experienced photographer, I thought I might not be able to do like the same level of work, but I can certainly go above and beyond to be helpful and be nice.
Bring the value in whatever way you can.
Exactly. And so that's something I've really tried to be aware of as we've grown the team is, do people buy into that? And I love hearing that from other agents. Like, oh, everyone is so great to work with. Yeah. Olivia is so helpful, and
she's the greatest.
She is. She's a huge part of it. But again, it's such a critical piece for us being able to deliver our service as a whole. Yeah. Is scheduling, is customer service, is being able to answer questions. And so, just to your point of like being like I guess I see it as almost solving problems. And so if we can solve problems that, exist in whatever this client is trying to do, then that's a win. And so that's what I've always been trying. I've always tried to be aware of that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it shows.
Sam, where do you think you see structured media going?
Oh man. It's interesting. I think that it's hard saying where it's going. I think that we are entering like the next step, but I think kind of the interesting part about this industry is that it's always moving and it's always a moving target. And I think that's great because it keeps things mixed up. And I think that the natural progression is continuing to do the real estate work, but also moving forward with other service, media service, media marketing service products. And I think that these social media packages are kind of the next step. And I'm super excited to see how those play out. And I'm excited to, continue to get our process super, nailed down so that, we can continue to get this stuff back to our clients as soon as possible and with the best quality possible, and just kind of continue doing what we do in that way. It's super curious to think out further than that. But I would imagine even better products, service products.
That's right. One day at a time.
I think that bringing in the, to emphasize the marketing and marketing strategy is super important for sort of this next chapter, because I think there's a ton of value there. Because everybody's being told that they need to post on social media and you need to have a social media presence. but it's also like, yeah, you should do that. But also, it's kind of a waste of time for these people who are super busy if they're not making something that's valuable or that people are going to see, and then it's going to make them want to work with you. So it's kind of like, you got to get the best bang for your buck. Like if you're going to prioritize social media, bring somebody on who has a little bit more insight into it, who are professionals in it, who are experts, who can point you in the right direction, and better yet, like, do everything for you.
Right.
Because you're busy. You're out there making money. Like you're making it happen. And this social media, which is a really massive part of businesses, it's like small local businesses and big local businesses. Like it's super important, but it's also super important that the social media is focused, and that it's valuable, and that it's on brand, and that it actually gives the messages that you want your target audiences to absorb.
Yeah.
And like, you got to think about do you even know who your target audience is? Have you thought about who you want your social media to reach?
Yeah.
So I think that there's a lot to it. And, I think it's super fun to sort of, take the noise out of it for people so that, we can bring that value to them.
Absolutely.
And, just make them the star. Like,
that's right.
We'll take care of things. Just save some time to work with us to create this stuff, to plan the stuff, to create this stuff.
Yeah.
And then just review it with us. And then that's all you got to do.
That's right. Take as little time as possible and deliver as much value as possible. All right.
And we'll keep doing it.
That's right. Here we go.
All right.
That's it.
That's a wrap on episode 2.
All righty.